Welcome to my YouTube channel, Christy's Crash Course. Please do well to subscribe, hit the like button, and leave a comment in the comment section. Today we are going to start physiology questions and we are going to begin an endocrine series for this section of the video. And our first question says, which of the following statements are true? Which of the following statements are true? A. The anterior pituitary secretes growth hormone, thyroid stimulating hormone, and oxytocin. B. The anterior and posterior pituitary gland have separate embryological origins, similar histological appearances, but different functions. C. The anterior and posterior pituitary cumulatively secrete several hormones with multiple functions important for normal functioning of almost every organ system. D. The anterior and posterior pituitary only secrete tropical hormones that turns on the effect of other endocrine hormones, other endocrine organs. So which of the following is true? We are going to analyze each option and get to the correct answer. Stick around. The first option says the anterior pituitary secretes growth hormones, thyroid stimulating hormones, and oxytocin. So it begs the question, what is the anterior pituitary gland? And in our diagram here, we've outlined the anterior pituitary, we've also outlined the posterior, we've also outlined the hypothalamus. So the anterior pituitary is a part of the central endocrine organs. It is a very instrumental part, and it is characteristic for having certain cells which we call the trophic cells, and we have about 5 of them. So we could label this one. The first one we're going to write is called the somatotropes, which usually releases growth hormone. And then we have corticotropes, which produces ACTH, also called the adrenocorticotropic hormone. Adrenal. And then we have the gonadotropes. This produces what we call the luteinizing hormone and the follicular stimulating hormones. We also have our lactotropes, which produces prolactin. And we have thyrotropes, which produces the thyroid stimulating hormone. And so we have 5 tropes within the anterior pituitary glands, and they produce 6 hormones. So we could label this 1, we could give this 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so they are clusters. They are not like precisely just arranged in a orderly manner. They are clustered within themselves. And so the question, option A, says the anterior pituitary secretes growth hormones, thyroid stimulating hormones. Yes, but does it secrete oxytocin? No. So the next question is, where is oxytocin? Where is it being produced? Now, to answer that question, we have to look at this hormone, which we call the posterior pituitary hormone. So the posterior pituitary hormone, the posterior pituitary glands rather, is responsible for the production of 2 major hormones, and I wouldn't say it's produced. Like you could see, the axons within the hypothalamus produces these two hormones, but then it stores it within the posterior pituitary gland. So the two hormones that the posterior pituitary gland, the two hormones that are stored within this region are oxytocin and AVP. We call it arginine vasopressin, or ADH, also known as antidiuretic hormone. So these are the two major hormones that are being stored in the posterior pituitary gland. And so you could see that option A won't be the right answer because oxytocin is not produced in the anterior pituitary gland. Option B says the anterior and posterior pituitary glands have separate embryological origins, similar histological appearances, but different function. Can this be true? Is there any truth to this? Well, looking at these diagrams that are displayed on the screen, you could see that we have the anatomical view here, and we have the histological view. Okay, so basically we are able to see from these two views that there is the anatomical view with the structures of the anterior and posterior pituitary glands. We could clearly see that the anterior pituitary has a part tuberalis, has a part intermedio. It also has a part distalis, right? And then the posterior pituitary has a part nervosa. It has an infundibulum stalk, median eminence, and it is just beneath the hypothalamus. Okay, now for the histological view, the histological view shows a lightly stained endocrine organ in front, and quite well a darkly stained one just behind it. And this is usually due to the fact that within the posterior pituitary, which is this one here, we get to find mostly nervous tissues, while in the anterior pituitary, which is this here, so we'll call this anterior, we'll call this posterior, right? So within the anterior pituitary, we get to find basophilic cells, acidophilic cells that are responsible for the production of the hormones that eventually goes to endocrine organs to stimulate them, or goes to other tissues in order to give a biological response. Now, having that in mind, we are going to address the question. The question says they have similar histological appearance. Can that be true? Well, looking at this histological appearance, it is very much obvious that they have different histological appearance. What of their embryological origin? So when we say embryo or embryological origin, we are looking at the most early stage of development where the body parts were being formed, right? And so do they have separate embryological origin? Yes, they do. As a matter of fact, the anterior pituitary gland, so anterior originates from what we call the oral ectoderm, while the posterior pituitary gland originates from what we call the neural ectoderm. And so it is mostly said that the posterior pituitary gland is the structural continuation of the hypothalamus. Okay, and the posterior pituitary gland usually just contains the axonal ends and the axon bodies that are coming down from the large body cells of the
hypothalamic neurons. Yes, that is what it is. So the option B, we could see that, well, they have separate embryological origin. That's true. However, they have very much different histological appearance, and also they have different functions, because we've seen in the previous question that they absolutely have different hormones they release, thus giving birth to different functions. D says the anterior and posterior pituitary only secrete tropic hormones that turns on the effect of other endocrine organs. Now, what is actually very important for us to know is that tropic hormones, like detailed in the questions, are those hormones that goes to other endocrine glands or other endocrine organs and stimulate the release of hormones from them. Okay, and so you could see that when considering tropic hormones, we mostly want to look at some text gives the explanation that tropic hormones could be hormones released from the adenohypophysis, so more so the anterior pituitary gland. But even from the hypothalamus, we could see thyrotropic releasing hormone, corticotropic releasing hormone, and we could see growth hormone releasing hormone. They are literally going to the pituitary gland, which is an endocrine organ, in order to stimulate the trophic cells to release the various hormones. However, if we want to narrow tropic hormones down to the hormones released by the adenohypophysis, because the hormones released by the posterior pituitary glands, which is basically oxytocin, right? So released by the posterior pituitary glands, which is basically oxytocin, and ADH, do not go to any endocrine organ. They literally just go to tissues of the body, and then they stimulate a biological response there. But from the anterior pituitary glands, right? From the anterior pituitary gland, not all the hormones are really characterized as trophic hormones, if we are following the definition that trophic hormones are those hormones that goes to endocrine organ and stimulate the result of hormones from them. Why do I say so? Because if you look at the aspect of somatotropes, for example, which are growth hormones, these hormones usually go to the liver, so basically organs of the body that are not necessarily endocrine organs, and stimulates their functions, right? However, it is not a trophic in the sense that it's going to cause the release of another hormone. Although they're in the liver, there's the release of insulin like growth factor, but it is not from an endocrine gland, as so to say, or so to speak. And so the basic trophic hormones, which we are going to outline here, are the TSH, ACTH, LH, and FSH. So these are the major trophic hormones, because the thyroid stimulating hormone will go to the thyroid glands, right? So it goes to thyroid glands, and it stimulates the release of T3, T4 as the end response. This goes to the ovaries and the testes, and eventually stimulates the response of estrogen, progesterone, and here testosterone. Okay, and then ACTH goes to ACTH goes to the adrenal gland, and it goes to stimulate mostly the adrenal cortex now, and it usually goes to stimulate the release of cortisol. Although there are evidences that it also goes to the reticularis and helps in the process of the formation of the androgens there, but more so it goes to stimulate cortisol production in the adrenal cortex. We have majorly three parts in the adrenal cortex. We have the zona glomerulosa, the zona fasciculata, and we also have the zona reticularis. and so the zona glomerulosa is responsible for the production of the mineralocorticoid. The zona fasciculata is responsible for the production of the glucocorticoids, and eventually the zona reticularis is responsible for the formation of androgens, which could range from DHEA or even testosterone in the long run. So it goes to stimulate that. So the question to be answered, it says the anterior and posterior pituitary only secretes trophic hormones that turns on the effect of other endocrine organs. Is this true? Anterior produces certain trophic hormones, that's true, but the posterior does not. So the posterior does not produce trophic hormones, and so this option will not be correct. Lastly, we have the anterior and posterior pituitary cumulatively secrete several hormones with multiple functions important for normal functioning of almost every organ system. This option is definitely correct because they secrete a whole variety of hormones, and this diagram gives us an idea of what really is happening. So you could see that from the anterior pituitary, which is marked by this one here, it's releasing the thyroid stimulating hormones going to the thyroid glands. You could see the adrenocorticotropin going to the adrenal cortex. You could see prolactin helping in the process of milk production. You could see growth hormones going to your bones, going to even your liver to also stimulate the release of insulin-like growth factor 1. You could see gonadotropins going to your ovaries, your testes, eventually allowing for the production of testosterone, of estrogen, of progesterone. You could see the posterior pituitary usually releases ADH. ADH is a very important hormone because it usually wants to preserve or conserve water, and so it goes to act in the kidney on specific receptors in the kidney, and it helps in reducing urine output and then conserve more water so that your blood pressure can be increased. It also has a kind of relationship with also helping your test so that you can drink more water and increase the blood volume. Okay, so we also have oxytocin goes to your uterus, and it allows for uterine contraction and even for the process of milk let down. So these are very important things we need to know, and so the correct answer to this question is option C, because it satisfies everything. All right. Thank you so much for watching. Do well to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Bye bye.